It's not opening.
Discord.
It's our friendly Discord.
Are we live?
God.
Are we live?
Let's find out.
Oh, yeah,
Podcast
apparently
trends.
we are.
UT is listed. They are certified.
John is looking as beautiful as ever. That's nice.
And what?
Apparently you're looking as beautiful as ever.
Well, that's rather worrying lack of taste, I would suggest.
It didn't say you were beautiful, just as beautiful as ever.
Thank you, Nick. You can leave now.
Setting the tone for the podcast.
I'm going to sit here and suck on my Coke.
Right, I'm just going to put the agenda to the bottom of the chat so I can see what we're going to be talking about.
Apparently Nick is very loud.
That makes a change. Hang on. There's something around the back.
Yeah, you got some sort of a mains flicker. Have you got a...
Oh, do you know what? I've got... Yeah, it's a problem with my camera. It's been aware for a week.
your
You're just
overhead
going to have to put
lighting?
up with it, I'm afraid. I can switch off the lighting.
Am I still very loud?
A touch.
Let me go down a bit further.
Yeah, that's better, Tim.
Am I still very loud?
That's better. That's better.
Good.
Right.
I quite liked Tim's flicker. It looked like he had a tropical environment and a fan going around on the ceiling and all sorts.
You've got a vivid imagination there, Nick. I'll give you that.
It was starting to give me a headache. Yes, they like my T-shirt today. Let me just give you the full effect here. Yes.
Well, that's a very appropriate T-shirt, bearing in mind I only logged on about 2 minutes ago.
I got it from NAB in Las Vegas about 3-4 years ago. It's one of their official T-shirts of the thing.
And we've got Ninja Nurse for the whole duration. Oh,
And he's off
Peter,
work.
I need to edit that thing.
Apparently it's gone past 1 o'clock.
All right, hang on a sec. Let's go make a note to sort the edit that Peter asked me to sort out, which I will do. Okay, shall we go?
Oh, why not?
I can't promise it'll go well, by the way, but it's been a bit of a pull together. This is very much a string and sellotape kind of job. Anyway, hello and welcome to the PC Pro podcast. It is the 31st of July 2025. I'm still Tim Danson. Are you still John Honeyball?
I have no idea, mate. I'm just doing my best. I am what I am today. How about that?
You are what you are. Olivia Whitcroft, are you who you are?
I think I am. I say definitively.
Okay. We could do an existential podcast instead of a technological one.
I could pretend to be you.
Yeah? Do you want to do an impression?
Oh, God, no. That would break the internet.
And also, very much here and with us and existent, Mr. Nick Rawlinson.
Hello, Tim.
Hi. Right. Well, it's a bit of an unusual podcast, this one, because we're going to focus in on one particular topic because, well, John reckons he could talk about it for the whole podcast, but we're going to go for about half that. We'll see how it goes. We won't keep it going for any longer than necessary. But there's been a lot happening about age assurance laws, and Olivia, thankfully, is with us and has looked at this in detail. So, Olivia, do you mind just kicking us off and giving us a state of the nation, please?
Absolutely. So the reason that it's such a hot topic is, as from Friday last week, the 25th of July, organisations need to comply with certain rules under the Online Safety Act relating to the protection of children online. These include age assurance rules and certain other rules too. So sort of a recap, the online safety rules apply to user-to-user services likely to be accessed by children. So this is where users can share content with each other and where that content is likely to be accessed by children. So this doesn't mean that it's aimed at children necessarily. Risk assessments need to be completed as to whether it's likely that children might access them. So this is where we get these rules that have just come into force. They are not the whole of the Online Safety Act. There are other rules to do with illegal content which are already applicable from earlier this year. So these are specifically the ones to do with children and accessing harmful content. So organisations have to prevent children from encountering now most harmful types of content. So this includes pornography, things to do with self-harm, suicide and eating disorders, and they must prevent children from encountering that. If you are operating a tool or a site that allows that type of content, then you have to conduct age assurance activities to prevent children from accessing it. And these age assurance activities must be highly effective. That's what it is. So this is a lot of debate over what highly effective means. There are also provisions that you must put in place to mitigate the risks of children accessing other types of harmful content that aren't these priority areas, but includes others such as hatred, bullying, violence, dangerous stunts and challenges. So it covers all those sorts of activities as well, which you also may need age assurance for. So there's this particular debate, and the thing that we were looking to cover in detail is this over age assurance. So age assurance may be used to prevent children from encountering this content or to mitigate the risks of other types of harm as well. And obviously there are clear reasons for wanting to do this, preventing access to these types of things in the online world, similar to the offline world. If you children walks into a shop selling pornography, clearly you can either tell they aren't over 18, or you can ask for ID to check they are. So it's trying to put similar provisions in place for the online world. And these laws have been in the making for many, many years. The Online Safety Act started with a white paper in 2019 on online harms. Even before that, David Cameron with his coalition government, it was 2013, was talking about protecting children online. So it's been in the making for a long time, and still there's a lot of debate about how we can do it effectively, but there's loads of debate all over the years as to where we've got to where we are today. I should add that it's not an entirely new legal concept. We've already had provisions that requiring age assurance, and there have already been a lot of tools out of there over the years, and including through Ofcom. So there are video sharing requirements. I think OnlyFans got a huge fine earlier this year under certain age assurance requirements. So it's not completely new, but it's now much wider and more specific to have these highly effective age assurance measures.
Okay, so is this a good time, I think, to start talking about whether they truly are highly effective? Or do you want to go into a bit more background first, Olivia?
Well, I want to go into a bit more background first about why there's so much concern. So there's the highly effective nature, but it's also the tension between putting in place these age assurance measures and the additional risks that the age assurance measures create. So we've got clear reasons for wanting them, but by putting age assurance measures in place, we're creating other risks. We're creating other privacy risks. We're containing risks of exploitation of use of ID by criminals to commit fraud. We've got so there's good reasons for doing it, but there's also the risks that it'll be inaccurate and not highly effective, or that ID will be used for fraud and other purposes. So that's where we've got to. I know that John's going to talk more at length about specific ways and specific issues with the ways of doing it. There are certain industry standards, and there's an ICO certification to address the privacy risks that you can get for the age check certification scheme. So there are tools out there that's been there since 2021, which could provide assurance against the privacy risks. But I'll leave John to come back on that, perhaps dip in again on that, because I know he's got some views on that as well.
Yeah. I'm keen to get some debate going as well within the team, because when I actually joined the pre-podcast discussion, it seemed like you two were having a quite vigorous argument. So we should, I definitely want to come back to getting that. But I should have said right at the start, Olivia, the reason why I turned to you first is because you are a lawyer. So you do have, the legal chops to talk about this, as opposed to ignorant people such as myself and Nick and John. Okay, is this a good point now, would you say, Olivia, to start talking about the highly effective methods?
Yes, so highly effective. So Ofcom provides some guidance on highly effective methods and what they may look like. So let me have a look. Where are they said? So things like face recognition, and what else? I'm trying to find my list of what Ofcom says about it.
Well, I'll tell you
very
what.
vague. They've got a huge paper on this. Yeah, I've lost it. I'll come back to that because I've lost my list of all the things they say what highly effective methods are.
Well, that's fine, because John is our man to actually go into whether or not they are effective. John?
Well, it's very early days in terms of mass rollout and testing of this stuff. And we have to accept that we're only some days into this process in terms of it hitting the the great unwashed, as it were, because although these technologies have been around for a while, as you say, and some of the frameworks have been around for a while, it kind of all really started happening over the last few weeks as companies readied their solutions necessary to be compliant here. And these are, of course, not just UK service providers, but people who are providing service in the UK. They don't actually have to be headquartered here, but they have to be doing business here, as I understand it.
Yep.
And it's not just doing business necessarily in terms of taking money, it's providing a service. I think I'm correct in that, Olivia, yes? Because I think these are important definitions.
Yeah, I think it's where it's likely to be accessed by users in the UK. So, and here we're talking about children specifically. So, yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, like, provision of service here is not quite the same as provision of train services, where kind of by definition you have to pay for it. Provision of free services.
Yes,
exactly. So that's my point here.
Yeah.
So the sort of the classic one, which would be you have to have a credit card, and credit cards are deemed to be a reasonable, highly effective method of validating somebody in the eyes of the officials, because by definition you can only have a credit card if you are of a designated age and so forth. So I went through, since this kicked in at the end of last week, I've been going on an incredibly grubby and unpleasant journey through the underbelly of certain aspects of the internet. It'd be very glib to say, oh, wasn't it so great fun and educational, but actually really no. And this is just the easy stuff, let alone the really difficult underground stuff that undoubtedly is still there and undoubtedly is going to take not the slightest bit of notice of any government proposal here.
Yeah.
Especially once you start getting into, what we tend to call the dark web and Tor browsers and distributed stuff. Anyway, coming back to the sort of the more easy pickings, because undoubtedly, Olivia's point is absolutely right, which is this is a good thing to do. We should not be allowing children to be exposed to this sort of stuff. And it is a fairly major failing of the internet over the last 30 years that we've allowed systems to develop and grow over time where this has happened, and where it has been viewed as acceptable for you to go to a site and it says, are you over 18? Oh yes, I'm over 18. Well, we'll let you in then. It's a bit like going up to a pub and saying, please sir, can I come in please? Oh, are you over 18? Oh yes sir, of course. Come on in and have a beer. I mean, it's been
there are
no
some
more
pubs like that, John.
well, yes, but again, indeed there is, not there are. So what I was looking at was I went to just a couple of the obvious, well-known Google hits for porn, because porn is, obviously, it's, as Olivia quite rightly says, it is not the only topic here, and I think it's very important that this discussion doesn't rotate around the topic of porn, because as Olivia says, it's self-harm, it's eating disorders, it's bullying, it's a whole wider space here, but the easy one for everyone to latch onto in terms of headlines is the porn. So I went to one site, and one thing that is clear here is that none of this stuff is going to work without you having an account on their site. So the days of you trolling up to some site and saying, yes, I'm over 18, honest gov, and getting let in anonymously, those are over. Because the only way that age verification is able to work is by applying an age verification tick, if you like, against an account. Now, there's a whole bunch of issues that I don't want to come on to behind this, but the first one I went to, and it's clear that these sites are subcontracting this capability out to third parties, exactly as you would expect. And exactly as you expect, there will be, I'm sure, a whole galaxy of providers out there of quality and capability and reputable process and so forth, and a whole galaxy of them who are and are not necessarily in UK jurisdiction, which I think may well be an interesting side point there. Again, but I have
Look,
to refer
shall we
back
just-
to Oliver on this.
Shall we just focus on that briefly, John? Because I think of all the sites that you tested, the systems you looked at, I don't believe any of them were UK based.
One is the one that I was going to come on to first, called Yoti, is based in the UK, and it's been around for some years. And that doing verification technologies is what this company does.
And that, just sorry to interject, that's what I was just checking. It is certified with the UK ICO's certification scheme for age assurance services.
So this is what you would, you're, at first glance, you're going to say this is a quality product, yeah, from a reputable UK-based company, and it's ticking all the good boxes in your mind. And what it did was, they, interestingly enough, they offer two ways of doing verification. One of which is, if you want to stay in your web browser, you can go through a facial recognition using the camera of your phone or your laptop or your desktop screen, and it takes a picture of your face, and then you move in a bit closer and it takes another one, and by that they use some sort of engine, I mean I'm guessing here AI based engine, to say, does this person look of a certain age? Yes, no. Or you can actually use their app. They have a Yoti authentication app you can put on your device, register an account on that, verify on that account, and then the Yoti app can provide authentication into third-party services. So you don't have to do this on multiple sites or multiple services.
Okay, so just to clarify, John, so if you install the app and you set yourself up on it and you're proven to be over 18 according to the app, then you can use that as the background login system for all the sites where your ID is tied to that login.
Yes and no. It will work for sites and providers that have signed up with Yoti as their authenticator.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
This is not quite. Think of it more like using your Google login or your Facebook login or somewhere.
Yeah.
It only works if those are
Supported by
this. Yeah. And to be honest, I'm really surprised that the likes of Google and Facebook and Twitter haven't piled in on this to provide authentication services, because those are well-known and trustworthy brands in the eyes of the public. Anyway, so it does this photograph thing, and it very quickly comes back and says, yes, you are over 18, and you then basically, it marks your account at the site that you're trying to get into, that you are then kosher, and that's fine, and that kind of works well. I have some points about this functionally I want to come back to in a minute, but I want to talk about the second site. I went to another site, and it used an entirely different authentication platform from an entirely different company called AllPass Trust, and again, it needs a user account, because, as I said, everything is tied to accounts on services. This did not offer to do facial recognition at all. None of that was possible. What it did offer was 4 different methods. You could verify by credit card, verify by email, verify by mobile phone, and verify by online banking. Now let's just touch on each of those. Verify by credit card allows you to put in credit card details, and then it uses the 2FA function that we now have on credit card transactions, which can be an SMS or something like this, but it's that 2FA functionality on a credit card purchase to verify that you are who you say you are. And then the platform, and obviously the framework, the legal framework behind this, says you have had a verified credit card transaction of 0 pence. You are therefore the person who you say you are. You get the tick onto your account. That's quite straightforward. Verify by email sends you an email to your address, but also does what they quite vaguely talk about, searches on your email address. Okay, to sort of verify whether there are emails out there. That to me sounds, it may well be perfectly fabulous, but it kind of struck me as being a little bit odd, I must confess. That Verify by mobile phone does a similar thing, because not only does it send you an SMS message, which would be trivially easy, but it also uses connections to the telcos to validate that you don't have any 18 age blocks on the mobile number. okay, and that you, of course, you are in good standing. And maybe they do things like this is not a pay-as-you-go SIM; it's a contract SIM. Again, very vague, but you could see how some of those things could work. And then the final one, which really did make me go, oh, was verify by online banking. Because we have this facility in the UK called Open Banking, whereby you could join your for example, my accounts package at, I can't remember even the name of the company, but it's one of the online accountancy packages.
Intuit, for example.
Intuit, yeah. You can join it to your credit card in your bank account through this government system called Open Banking. So you provide authorization and credentials in, and therefore you are then validated as being a person of appropriate age. Now, all of that is fine, but I must confess I thought the idea, at least in principle, of using open banking to validate someone's access to a porn site seemed just kind of a little bit off-piste, I must confess. So I didn't go much further down there. But the one thing that was interesting was that this company called AllPass Trust don't actually provide these services themselves. They are subcontracting to another layer down the stack. So the credit card verification is done through a straightforward credit card transaction. Verify by email uses a service called verifymy.com.
Yes, I looked for them online actually, John, when you mentioned them. And I cannot find a. I'm sure there is a URL somewhere, but yeah, it's not obvious if so.
And then the mobile phone and the bank verification is from a third-party company called OneID.uk, which does appear to have a site, I think, you can go and look at, and they provide these kinds of services. Now, the point I wanted to refer back to here is that all of these things are probably breakable, okay? And even provision of a government ID, like a driving license with a photograph on it, that you can hold up and upload as an image of you. I noted that I saw last night there's an enterprising chap having some fun here in the UK who will generate a entirely fake driver's license based around the details of your local MP. You just give them the postcode of where you live or somewhere else entirely, and it would generate what looks like an entirely valid driving license. And the sort of the claim on the intertubes here is that kind of like passes check. Okay, what if you're going to use a camera? Remember your laptop camera or a camera on your screen doesn't have a depth camera. This is not like log into your phone with LiDAR reading the shape of your face. So what happens if I just hold up a really nice photograph of somebody and then sort of move it forward? How does it know that it's real or not? How effective, how reliable is the AI behind this? Okay,
and all of those things. Minority Report.
Well, who knows? But the final point I wanted to raise at this point was this is applying a tick box to your account on that site. Okay, we understand that. Yeah. You have now been verified. And they said in all of these places, and I'm sure Olivia will fill us in with a bit more legal detail on this, they all say they delete your data once they have verified you. So whatever method it was that you used to get the tick is then burnt, okay? And they have provided the tick back to the website or service provider to say, yes, you are of age or you are not of age, and they don't keep anything. What that means, of course, is you could go back and re-verify with exactly the same details, probably for some other site, some other account. Because if they're burning all the data, how can they check that it's not something that's being reused? And the other point I want to raise here, any kind of authentication system like this, you would expect to have an automatic timeout. Yeah, in 3 months' time, you have to do this again. Yeah? In 6 months' time, you have to do this again. You don't do this and get a tick box in perpetuity. But is there any facility, Olivia, in the regulations? Because I have found no claim for this on any of these verification sites, that your verification will automatically and legally required to time out after 3 months, 1 year, whatever.
Okay, so I'm just going to do a brief. So Olivia, hold that thought because I just worry that we're going to lose Nick out of because he's not had a chance to say anything yet. Nick, do you have anything you wish to add? Oh, you've got lots of notes. So for those who are just doing the audio podcast, Nick just held up a list of swotty notes that he's made, and I also saw Olivia making swotty notes. What swotty notes do you want to talk about, Nick?
They're not going to be as good as Olivia's, I can promise you that now. First one, no time out, because that's the thing we talked about most recently. Going back to John, theoretical question. If that's the case, are you worried that there's another attack vector here? Effectively, any of these services that is authorizing us, if someone gained access to those authorization services, they can pose as us on sites that we've never really wanted to authorize ourselves for, because, of course, they can then go and get a tick on another site pretending to be us. Does that make sense? Is that a completely garbled hypothesis?
If you are authenticating, say you go to porn site 1
Yeah.
and you authenticate through a service on porn site 1, I don't see how that authentication can be used on porn site 2, okay? Because it would hopefully be entirely locked down to the first site. And the back-end provider, they're all saying we don't store anything. So there should be nothing there that allows reuse of stuff that you have entered to the verifier to be used somewhere else. That's if they're telling the truth. Okay, if they're actually building up a big library of biometrics and data and so forth, which I'm sure Olivia is going to leap in here and say, but that will be illegal. But hey, that may happen. The answer to this, Nick, is we simply don't know.
Okay, my other point is parking where I live and any other towns around here, nobody can agree on the same parking app. And I think that's the situation we're getting into here, where we're going to have to be using different ID services for the different sites we want to log into. Wouldn't the simplest solution be for the government not to have only given us the problem, but also the solution in that they know who we are? Most of us have got, well, many of us have got passports, many of us have got driving licenses. We're going to need them increasingly to vote. There is a national ID option. It's not obviously an ID scheme because it's not compulsory for those who don't have those documents who do want to vote. I believe you can get some ID. Why can't the government give us some sort of hashed, token that is acceptable by every service that we want to be logging into, that doesn't necessarily tie anything to us, it doesn't tell the government what we're logging into, but it's a key that unlocks those services by saying, yes, person X, we don't know who they are, but yes, they are somebody who is old enough to be using these services.
Olivia, do you have any idea why that might be?
No, I don't, I'm afraid. No. Yeah.
John, I know John has. I deliberately didn't go straight to John because I know that John's got a John. But I'll go to you now, John. What do you think?
I think it comes down to a number of things. One of which is, yes, it's perfectly possible for, we all have digital IDs, as you say, Nick. We have passport, we have driving license, we have an NHS number, we have, we all have government mandated digital ID. And I do accept, Nick and I go back a long time, and we remember the early days of Tut Internet, where we all thought it was all going to be lovely and free and open and stuff. But let's wake up to the realities of 2025, which is there is digital IDs everywhere, and we are having to use them all the time, whether it be credit card payment systems by NFC, through to driving licenses, through to passports, through to paying your local council tax bill or whatever. There is a ton of this stuff out there. The reason that the government doesn't want to do this, I think, is actually twofold. One of which is there are perfectly good services out there inside government that could do this. But they neither have the time nor the money nor, frankly, the inclination to want to actually have to take on this workload. Okay, you can imagine the Sir Humphreys out there saying, no, it's not, it's not for us, Minister. We need a lot of budget. And then the government, with the wonderful financial condition that we find ourselves in these days, doesn't like the idea of having to come up with any money to do this if they can pass the whole cost off on to third-party companies, which is exactly what they're doing. If you are running a site or a discussion forum or something, it doesn't even have to, as Olivia says, and I think it's super important to reiterate this, it doesn't even have to be anything about porn. It could just have young people on there and you have to control what they're talking about. You have to control what material they can see, and that is a very, very big remit, and could impact your local, village football team forum, for example. So the reason why they don't want to do it is also one of liability. If a government department has actually said that this person is of an age to be allowed to do this, and it turns out that they're not, then the politicians really don't want to be on the hook for this.
Also, it's that there's a political side to it always, which is that we know that digital IDs were a huge. I think Tony Blair wanted to bring them in,
Yep.
didn't he? Just not a digital ID, but a personal ID for everyone. And that quickly got dropped because it just became so unpopular. So it's one of those things that politicians just steer clear of instinctively, because it's just there's no good will come of it, basically. Nick, did you have one more burning thing? Because I do want to come to Olivia's list as well.
No, I'm happy to cede the floor at this stage.
All right, Olivia, over to you.
Yes, I need to be quick now, don't I? There are a few points arising from what John has said. I think the first, it's important we distinguish between different age assurance measures, because we've got age estimation and age verification, and we tend to talk about them all under the same banner. But the age estimate, the facial recognition and the facial is about estimation of age, isn't it? It's not verifying someone's a particular age, it's about estimating it. Some of the others you were looking at, it's about verifying that someone actually is over 18. So those different methods, I think, as well have different privacy implications and different likelihood of fraud and so on, depending on what you're showing. And I suppose that linking to the government ID point, if you're giving some official ID with your passport photo and your passport and your date of birth or as verified there, that is higher risk from a privacy point of view than if you're just looking at someone's face to estimate their age and confirming they're over 18. So there's also relevant to whether something's highly effective, because you have to demonstrate, if you're estimating rather than verifying, that it is actually highly effective. It doesn't say perfect. It doesn't say perfect. There are going to be ways to slip through the net. As John said, there are going to be ways to commit fraud or to make mistakes. It doesn't have to be fraudulent, you just be making mistakes, but it has to be highly effective at doing it. In the same way as in the offline world, things aren't perfect, are they? People can take someone else's driver's license and go in and get into the pub and so on. So that was the first point I wanted to make. On the point in relation to timing out, it's a really good point, and I would expect as well there to be some time limit on the verification, not necessarily in the law, but as to whether something is highly effective. If it's a 20-year-old, 20 years out of date verification you've got, or estimation, I would expect that to be refreshed, but I'd expect that to be built into the mechanism rather than necessarily be set out in the law. So I don't know the answer to that, John, as in whether it is specifically set out in these things, but I would expect there to be some time out, as you said.
So, sorry, John, just before you go back to that, I will just add that there are a couple of comments from people in the Discord discussion. Always join us, by the way. We are live every Thursday in British time, 1 p.m. to 2 p.m. Except when we're not, but most of the time we are. And you can join the discussion at pcpro.link/discord. But a couple of the comments came in saying, well, why do you need to re-verify? It's not as if you're getting younger, are you? So what is the thinking behind that? So, John, I'll throw that to you as well as what the point you were going to make.
I mean, you're absolutely right. If someone has been verified as being 20, then in 2 years' time they will hopefully be 22, and therefore what is the problem? The problem is here, of course, is what happens if you are 19 and you get rejected and being told that you're 50? How are you going to go round that loop again to force the matter? And I think anyway, any kind of identity, any kind of security process has to have an element of refresh to it. Otherwise, you're just potentially building up a whole bank of very dodgy data, because as Olivia says, these things aren't perfect. And one good way of trying to keep the quality as good as you can, is to make these things refresh. The other point I wanted to make, which I think is also super important, maybe Olivia has spotted this in the legislation or the frameworks, because I'm afraid to say I haven't had time to go through that side of it yet. But are these suppliers going to be forced, who are validated, accredited suppliers that Olivia was talking about, are they going to be forced to publish their their efficiency rates and their failure rates, and the data as to how good they are actually being on their various services. I'm not expecting porn sites to do this. What I'm asking here is for those that are accredited against the government scheme here to be forced to doing public auditing of what they are doing in terms of false positives, false negatives, and so forth.
Olivia, do you know the answer? That's a tough one.
Just before, I will answer that. I also wanted just to say the really important point about changing over time is the meaning of highly effective will change over time necessarily, because technology changes on a daily basis, and a level of effectiveness. What's effective today may not be effective tomorrow. Similarly, you may have tools that appear on the market. So that's another perspective for why you need updates, is because what is effective changes over time. On the certification point, so the certification I was referring to is it addresses privacy aspects specifically of age assurance things, and it's to do with there's an ICO approved certification. I don't know whether they have to publish what they have to publish. It will be in the rules of that certification, so you would need to look at the.
But it's an obvious thing.
Yeah, it does. It does seem an obvious thing.
It's a public service provision that someone's paying for. I mean, you as a customer of a website or community site or a Facebook or whatever, you're not picking up the tab for this, but and I think this is also an important point, which is I looked at a number of these verification sites beyond the ones that I talked about here, and at none of them could I actually see any pricing structure that they would charge you, 2 cents per verification, and maybe have tiered levels that if you do 10,000 verifications a month you get a discount or anything like this. So the whole thing seems to be utterly opaque at the moment.
All right, I know there is more to say on this, but Olivia, do you want to, let's just kind of close that for the moment, and do you want to talk about the profiling tools?
Yes, very quickly. It's a related point. So it's earlier this week, the Information Commissioner's Office, shortly to become the Information Commission, published guidance on profiling tools which are used for compliance with Online Safety Act requirements. So this isn't directly related to age assurance, because it's age assurance tools, but those tools that are used to do the risk assessment and to mitigate the risks of harmful content and illegal content. So, for example, to try and detect grooming behaviour, or to try and detect bullying and harassment. So it's related to what we're saying, but it's not necessarily for the letting people on the site. It's to say, okay, we're building up a profile of this individual. We think between these two people there's some grooming activity going on. So this obviously has huge privacy, accuracy type issues as well, and the ICO has been considering that and has published some guidance on it. So they talk a lot about conducting a data protection impact assessment before you use such tools, and again the tension between compliance with the Online Safety Act and whilst respecting privacy of the people you're profiling, for a good reason profiling, but whilst respecting privacy. Yeah.
And how do they choose who's going to be profiled? Is it just a blanket everyone, or is it people who are known to be suspiciously behaving suspiciously?
Well, it needs to be part of your overall risk assessment for your site, and that will be if you are a higher risk site, or you suspect there's activities, you might carry out more profiling than if you're a very low risk site. So yes, everyone might choose profiling as a way to detect these activities, and linked to that, use of AI to help with it, which obviously is another topic to consider.
And are these tools being aimed at social media sites particularly, or is it more wide than that?
No, wider than that as well. It's for all organisations subject to the Online Safety Act, who now have a legal responsibility to try and mitigate the risks of online harm and access to illegal and harmful content. Yeah. Okay,
so presumably it must be somewhere just for sites that allows peer-to-peer communication.
So the Online Safety Act as a whole only applies to user-to-user services and search services as well. So it applies to Google and search services as well.
Okay, so hang on a sec. Does that mean that Google, for example, will have a profile for me set up to look for dangerous behaviour?
Oh, well, they don't. It's not legal requirement to do that, but that is a common way, particularly in this day and age, of trying to identify, is to analyse the data and say, well, that person's been doing an odd and unusual set of activities, so therefore we need to investigate it more.
Okay, all right.
I have one last point
yes,
here, which
go on,
is, let's say this is entirely hypothetical. Let's say I run a community website with a discussion forum for my village, or uh, the village hall, or something like this. Very, very simple, very lightweight, nice and easy. And people who create an account and they log in and they can talk about the state of the cricket pitch and so forth. At some point, the discussion will have to be had: do we need to validate the age of the people who are coming in, for example? And I think an important point here is, it's one thing to talk about these global-sized mega websites and services, the TikToks, the Googles, and so forth, and Pornhub and whatever in the world. How is this actually going to come down to the small medium enterprise, if you like, level of this, and the guidance that are going to be rolled out there? Or are people just basically expected to abandon any hope of doing anything like this and forcing all of this stuff onto the likes of a Facebook or a Google or a whatever, just because it's the basically the only option that makes sense to them, that they can understand and wrap their head around?
Sorry, I've got to stop, haven't I? Yeah.
No, not at all. Quite the opposite. I was wondering if you can.
If you've got a small community group and you all know each other and you know none of you are children, you don't have to do it, because it's not something that's likely to be accessed by children. So I agree, you've got the grey areas in the middle, but I think the very small ones, you're not going to have this issue because you know all your users and you know who they all are. It's when you get to users who you haven't met in person or you don't know generally, that it's going to be an issue. And it's all part of the risk assessment, which you need to do before putting out these measures. Is how risky is it? How likely is it? Is it like a 0.01% chance that children are going to access it, or actually do I not know who my users are and I've got thousands of users?
But let me come back to you here, Oliver, and you're absolutely right, and I 100% agree with you. But let's say I have a village forum thing and someone wants to join the forum and they claim that they lived in my village 15 years ago and just want to get in touch with blah, 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 and then you discover that they're trying to do grooming of some of the under 18s who happened also to be on there. At this point, saying, well, we thought it was a very low risk and we didn't think it was a problem, isn't going to wash in law, is it?
Okay, but we don't necessarily need to prevent them from accessing our forum, because it's not a forum that publishes pornography or things like that. You would have to have measures that seek to try and mitigate the risks of grooming once you've let them on there. So you're absolutely right. For any forum, you should be trying to detect and reduce the risk of harm. But unless it's one of those top priority ones, the pornography, self-harm and so on, because if you don't allow that content, and obviously you take measures to stop that content, it's not just saying we don't allow it and then letting people do it, it's the requirements aren't quite the same. So we're talking about something
I get that. I'm just in my head trying to tease through some maybe edge cases that actually will still create an awful lot of trouble for people.
All right, thank you. I think let's give Nick a chance to talk. Are your vocal cords still there, Nick? I feel like we haven't really given them enough chance to have exercise this lunchtime.
Makes a nice change, doesn't it?
Anyway, the next story is with you.
Yeah, this is a couple of stories actually coincided. One was triggered by Panorama, which I very rarely watch, but I watched it this morning because I read the stories about this Panorama, and then I thought, if I'm going to talk about it, I ought to watch it. The story in brief was KNP, which is a logistics firm, moves things all around the country. They had 500 lorries, and it's 158 years old, or it was. Unfortunately, was a victim of a cyber attack. 1,000 people now almost are out of work there because they couldn't recover from it, despite the fact that they had this enormous physical infrastructure. So, for example, they had 500 lorries, they had warehouses, they had all these other things. And it amazes me really that the fact that their data was encrypted and unfortunately their servers, backup and disaster recovery systems were all locked was enough to put them out of business. The ransom that was asked is believed to be about £5 million. And they were fully apparently compliant with industry standards, and they had insurance against cyber attacks, and that wasn't enough to save them. So I thought, well, where do we stand? What else is happening, and what's the state of the country? And by coincidence, the government has actually published the results of its cyber security breaches survey, which was a study carried out over the sort of beginning of this year, comparing us more or less with similar time last year. And there's good news and bad news in that. What we found is 43% of businesses and 30% of charities reported having some kind of breach or attack in the last 12 months. The good news is that for businesses, that's actually down. It was 50% previous year, and they're all doing better on many, many metrics like cybersecurity risk assessments, writing formal cybersecurity policies, and developing business continuity plans that address cybersecurity. The real worry is that for charities, it's gone in the other direction. 61,000 charities reported some kind of attack or breach in the last 12 months, but fewer of them are able to identify cyber risks than they could last year. Fewer are reviewing immediate supplier risks, and fewer have formal cybersecurity strategies in place, according to this government survey. Now, I need to say thank you to Olivia, who actually put me on to another important thing that's come out of the government, which is a Home Office consultation from the first quarter of this year, which included 3 proposals, all of which sound like fairly common sense, because obviously if cyber malignants realise that this is quite a good way to be making money, we need to find some way of making it less profitable for them. So the first proposal, which was supported by about 72% of the government that was consulted by the government, was a total ban on ransomware payments for any people running critical national infrastructure. So that's probably things like water companies, electricity companies, other government departments. Another proposal, Proposal 2, was a prevention scheme economy-wide that would monitor payments to known cyber threat actors to make sure that even those of us who aren't running critical national infrastructure also don't make payments, because obviously if you can't get money out of critical national infrastructure, you're going to start targeting further down the line. So those of us who are running large, medium and small enterprises may well be targeted. That was slightly less popular. It was the most popular option of the many offered by the government, but it was still below 50%. And Proposal 3 was a threshold-based mandatory reporting requirement for suspected victims of ransomware. You'd have to give the government within 72 hours key details of the attack, just really, I think, for stats and so they can see what's going on, and then a fuller report within 28 days. I would highly recommend watching that panorama. Actually, it's not technical, it's very easy to watch, but they did actually go into the NCSC. They talked to a lot of people who worked in there. It would appear that this is a large and growing problem, and when you actually look at the amount of work that they're doing this year compared to last year, it has enormously shot up, like, probably 50% of more jobs coming in per week or more reports coming in per week than they were last year. So it's something that I think we're going to be seeing an awful lot more of.
So just to go back to you're basically saying it wasn't their fault, is that correct? That there wasn't a mistake made or a strategy mistake?
This is the logistics firm.
Yes, sorry.
They have identified the weak point, they believe, which was one employee's password was not up to scratch. They haven't told the employee that it was them, because obviously I wouldn't want to know, and I don't think you'd want to know. And it was a guest password, it would appear. It was something that the hackers were just lucky.
But Nick, to me, and others may have a similar view, if the possibility of your company going down rests on one password, do you know what? It's not that person's fault anyway, because that alone should definitely not be enough to cripple your network to allow people in. I wouldn't say.
I don't know the mechanics of what was done. We obviously also don't know what role that employee had in the organisation.
Yeah.
If they are working on reception, then they have a lot of responsibility to present the company in a very good light, but they probably don't have responsibility for looking after the back end systems. If it was somebody in IT, then obviously that's a different case. But what I can't get my head around is a company that has so many people working for them, clearly a lot of customers that are going to be repeat customers, because you don't stay in business for 158 years if you aren't getting repeat customers. They have all those trucks, they have warehousing, and still the data was, the loss of the data was what has put them out of business rather than being able to start from scratch.
Yep. Okay, John, do you have anything very, very quickly you want to say about this?
No, I'm just, this is a very grey, difficult area. And if it was someone with what should have been low security access actually having high security access on the network, then that would be one concern. There's a whole bunch of things that actually could have been here. But I must confess, I still raised my eyebrows when I read the report.
Yeah. Okay. And Olivia, I will give the same opportunity to you.
Yeah, I wonder what the the hackers or the people charging the ransom got out of it. If they knew they couldn't afford the ransom, they've got all this useless data now. What they got out of it, how it helped them.
Yeah. And it could be a malicious attack, of course. Sorry, Nick, you were going to say something.
Yeah, it could be a vendetta.
Well,
yeah.
Is it useless data, or does the data have resale value? There still could be value in that data. And I think, even if it was a £5 million opening bid, I don't think that's necessarily what they would end up being paid. I think, there are negotiators who would have got that down to something more practical, and maybe that just wasn't possible in this instance.
All right.
You're right. The data itself, they may resell it as well if they haven't got it from the owner.
Okay, all right. Well, I'm looking at the time, and I'm thinking it's definitely time for nibs, despite the fact we've only had 2 official stories. So, John, over to you first to talk Aeroflot.
Yes, I mean, actually following on straight from what Nick's been talking about, Aeroflot had a major IT infrastructure attack in the last days, stopped them flying. It would appear that potentially externals attackers from countries not particularly happy with Russia, and I'm sure you can work out who they might be. One group called Silent Crow, another one called Cyber Partisans, managed to gain access into Aeroflot's IT systems somewhere around July of 2024. They then managed to wheedle their way around, escalating privileges, and ended up at domain controller level in spring of 2025. At this point, it would appear they took out 12 terabytes of databases, 8 terabytes of file shares, and 2 terabytes of mail stores in terms of copying, exfiltrating the data off the network. And then on the 27th of July, which is only a few days ago, at 11 o'clock in the evening, they used malware called Wiper, whose payload was activated across 122 VMware hosts and took out 7,000 physical and virtual servers, all of which were overwritten or bricked. And obviously, early on the next day, the 28th of July, Aeroflot employees discovered that an awful lot of stuff wasn't working. I did do a quick check, and apparently Aeroflot is back up and flying. So it would appear that either they have got everything recovered back to a way that will work, or they've gone back to pieces of cardboard and sheets of paper.
All right, I'm going to keep my nib very nibbish. Pebble is Pebble again. You may remember that Google bought the rights to Fitbit, I think it was, that bought the right to Pebble for $23 million in 2016. And I suspect that now that it's gone into this Kickstarter mode, this new company founded by the former CEO of Pebble that's now making smartwatches that you can buy on Kickstarter. I don't think he's paid $23 million for it, but as far as I know, it is undisclosed. Let's call it $23 is more likely. But anyway, it means that you can call your Pebble Watch a Pebble Watch again. And if you are a Pebble owner, it's quite difficult to say that. If you are a Pebble owner, then look out, because your watch could soon become online again and work properly. John, final very quick nib, please.
Little software update. Those awfully lovely people down in Australia at Rode, who make microphones and stuff like that, very famous company. They do some products specifically for podcasting and recording multi-people in conferences. And they have devices called Rodecaster Pro 2, Rodecaster Duo. They've partnered with a company called Vortex Communications to do over the internet access to people to join into the podcast and get really high quality voice over the internet into the Rodecaster Pro 2 and so forth. And so all of this capability is built into the firmware. It looks awfully cute, and I must confess I'm quite tempted.
All right, thank you. And for those of you who've not had quite enough of John's dulcet tones in this podcast, I've got great news, because next up is Hot Hardware of the Week. And who has got the Hot Hardware of the Week, John?
Oh, that would be me, wouldn't it? And I'm going to talk about a Rodecaster. No, I'm not, actually, because I haven't ordered one yet. But I'm just posting in what I have taken delivery of this morning. So I confess I've not had much time with it. And I'm going to rely upon you, Tim, to come up with some benchmark numbers that we did manage to run this morning. It is the new Samsung Fold 7, which is their latest super high-end folding phone cum tablet thing. And here on the screen, for those of us who are watching, it is a very nice phone, and it opens up to a full. Let me just lock myself into it. It opens up into a very nice tablet, as you can see, and you can fold it over, and then you get the front screen. Now, what's really interesting about this is I have here a Samsung S24 Ultra, and I have here the new Z Fold 2, and if I was to put them side by side and you were to look carefully, they are almost exactly the same thickness. This is a conventional Android smartphone. This is an Android smartphone, except it opens and you get screens in the middle. It's expensive. Let's not beat about the bush. The basic one is, oh goodness me, how much was it? Oh, £1,799 this cost, and you can go up to 2,100 quid if you want the 1 terabyte and so forth. I've looked at these before, and in fact I have got here as a Flip 5 Samsung, which bends the other way. But that's really quite thick. You compare the thickness of that to the thickness of this tablet, and you can see how this generationally is moving really fast.
The flip phones have always been fatter than the fold phones.
Yeah. But what is interesting here is that even in Flip 5, the problem with the hinge, you can I just hold it to
it's
the
very
right
visible.
there.
Yeah,
It's very visible on the hinge. On this one, if I open it up and hold it up to the light, you can see it's actually almost invisible. And this is a very harsh test I'm doing here, but you
Yes.
almost can't see it unless you actually reflect light off the surface of it, and you almost can't feel it either as you move your finger across. This really is absolutely cutting edge engineering here. Cameras on the back all the way up to 200 megapixel. I went to dig some pictures outside here. Not bad. I'm not sure it looks to me like 200 megapixels, even though there are that number of pixels. It's not 200 megapixels of resolution, it's 200 megapixels of pixels. It's Android, but they have done a really good job on working with split screen and laying out apps and so forth. It is the very latest version of Android, and now you're going to ask me what version that is. Is it 16 or 17?
it's definitely not 17. I think it's 16.
In that case, it's 16. About phone, Android something. Yeah. And so it is shipping with the latest thing on it. As a piece of technology, utterly gorgeous. Coltrigas is saying, can you see the fold? If you open it up and are working on screen, you can't see the fold. Does it have an outer screen? Nick L, yes, on the front. You get what looks like a completely conventional phone. So,
and I will just say, sorry to interrupt you, John, but the front of the phone is better now because it's wider. Previous generations of it, they're quite slim, and I've always found them very annoying to use, but this one actually looks very close to being like an ordinary width. You lose a tiny bit of the width because of the hinge, but it's not nearly so bad anymore.
Absolutely trivial. And as I said, you put it alongside an S24 Ultra, and they are essentially the same size. What don't I like about it? I should not be shooting myself in the foot here by saying this. The camera bulge is really quite big on it. And that actually matters more on something like this when you open it up and put it on a table, because it's wider and it's bigger. And actually my thoughts here is they should do something really quite radical, which is to take the whole camera bulge and move it off to the side of the phone here and protrude forward slightly to get the depth flat on the back. Because as you fold it, you've got all of that width to work with. Something for them to ponder on, I'm sure. Because that, to me, is really the significant problem with it. It doesn't have MagSafe or something like that, so you're going to have to think about magnetic mounting. The hinge is, it's brand new this morning. It's definitely got some sort of like springing mechanism in it because it does snap shut. But the whole thing is just absolutely cutting-edge technology, and I'm blown away by it.
Okay, so the other thing just to mention is that the battery is smaller than ideal.
Don't know yet, haven't run it down.
Nope. But I know our future colleagues have done the benchmarks, and so we know that it's, I don't know, let's say 50% less, something like that, compared to the S25 Ultra. So you are losing out on battery life. The other thing you're losing out compared to the S25 Ultra, if I remember correctly, is that S Pen support. They jettisoned that to make this thinner, because to put this into wider context, Samsung's been massively behind in this race to actually slim foldables for years. Honor has absolutely been beating it, and that they very much sharing the design concepts with Huawei. But there's been a clear winner there, and it's not been Samsung. So this is the first time where they've actually taken the lead, I think, for a while. So that is a way forward. And I think it's quite interesting, well, quite good that it supports DeX, John,
Yes.
because
So
it does.
you can have this sort of desktop mode. If you connect a keyboard, a mouse, and a screen into it, you can then operate it like a Windows desktop. It's rather sort of similar to a slightly old-fashioned looking Windows. The other thing I have, which I have to say is a negative for it, is this is an 1,800 quid phone. This is an expensive piece of technology, obviously. And compared to a Fairphone 5 or 6, whichever version they're up to now, at 500 notes, you can have 3 of those for the cost of one of these. And that is a value proposition that makes you sort of sit back and think. And I'm sure if Mr. Lee was here today, he'd be jumping up and down and banging on the screen saying, why would anybody in their right mind spend 1,800 quid on a phone when you can have 3 of the entirely user repairable Fairphones instead? And he would have a very valid point.
Yes.
But
And
it's
actually,
a different creature.
that comes into 2 separate points. One of which is that the warranty that comes with this, it's either 1 year or 2 years, but you definitely want to extend the warranty on the on this.
I've
because
taken out the rolling whatever it is, 9 quid a month or something.
Yeah, because the
coverage.
touch screens go wrong,
And this hinge is an absolute beauty of engineering, but I don't know what it's going to be like in 2 years' time, 3 years' time.
yes, especially because I think these aren't, well, they're not completely sealed against dust and sand, so there is a chance that, John, when you get next to your beach holiday, that you got to be very careful anyway when you do that sort of thing. But the other counterpoint to that is that you do get 7 years of updates, I believe. So
Yep.
this is a very, very fast phone. John ran some benchmarks earlier today. And so if I pull that up, it's roughly equivalent to an iPad Air M2 we worked out.
Yeah.
Because it has I don't want to go too much into the scores, but 3,000 for single core Geekbench and 9,500 for the multi-core. Damn fast is what it basically boils down to, and that includes a very fast graphics chip as well. So it will perform. My biggest concern is that it's not a great battery now. What will that battery be like in 4 years' time? Good luck getting the damn thing out of that case, although I'm sure it's possible if you've got the tools.
I have got another problem with it, which I do think is raising, and it worth raising. And it does come back to the price, and it does come back to the technology here, because you've got something here that's basically like a little iPad, if you like. Yeah. And 1,800 quid is putting you almost into iPad Pro M4 territory.
Yep.
Okay, that's a bigger thing. Even with the 11-inch one, it's bigger than this. And an iPad M4 obviously doesn't fold up and go in your jeans pocket. I get that point. Nor does an iPad Pro M4.
Well, it only does it once, John.
Okay, yes. An iPad Pro M4 also doesn't take and make standard 4G, 5G telephone calls.
Yeah.
So I accept it's a different creature, but this is the software point that I need to come back to. I don't mind Android, use it all the time, but there are not the high-end applications and tools and packages available on Android that there are on iPad OS. There is no real equivalent to Final Cut Pro, DaVinci Resolve, and the Adobe stuff at that really high-end level that is comparable. Some of this stuff obviously is from Apple for its Apple platform. I get the point. But I feel that there is a bit of a glass ceiling here on Android at this price point in terms of being a very high end of a middle level solution rather than having lifted itself up to what you might call a professional grade product.
I understand what you mean. Nick, do you have any questions?
No.
Olivia?
No questions.
Okay. All right, then in that case, I think we are perfectly timed to do a... Ooh. Running deck. Thank you very much. I was just about to do a poll, but you've done it for me. Fantastic. I'll just retire. I'm pointless. So is the Galaxy Z Fold hot or not? Please cast your vote now on the if you're listening to us live on Discord, or watching us on YouTube, I should say, and following us on Discord. And Olivia, hot or not?
I was definitely going to say hot when he started off, and all I could think was I really, really want one of these. I would find it really useful, like, incredibly useful. I've got a Samsung phone. I like Samsung generally, and this, I mean, it looks brilliant. But then, I mean, the price That's too much. That's too much for me. And what you're talking about battery life then triggered a battery life. I do need to have a long battery, so that worried me. Was it enough to say not hot? Can I say hot but price
No,
too much?
You can say hot, but
No.
cost too much. That's fine. We'll count
Yeah.
that as a hot. Nick,
Hot technology, no problem with the price because of the fact it's cutting edge. Not a product for me because I like my iPad, big one, whatever it's called, Air Pro thing, Air Max 13.
that's actually the name. You've nailed it.
Yeah, and a separate phone. And I just don't have the use for this. It's a great looking product. It's probably hot, but it's not for me.
Is that a hot or a not, Nick? I think it needs
It's
to get-
tepid.
No, there is no tepid button.
Oh,
It's
give
either
it hot.
or
Give
not.
it hot.
Okay,
Give it a
thank
hot.
you. Oh God, I'm very torn as well. John, what do you think? Hot or not?
As a piece of technology, you can see where all of their R&D has gone into this over previous generations. And I can, if there's only one thing you need to know about the hinge and the dip that have been a problem of previous ones, sat here operating it this morning, I actually, because it's almost square, I actually didn't know which way round it was and where the crease was, because when it's open like this and you're running an app, it's almost impossible to tell. And that's actually a little of a, sounds crazy, it's a bit of an issue because you don't know which way you're supposed to fold it. But I mean, as a piece of tech, it's utterly hot. 1,800 quid. Well, I mean, I bought it with my own money, so I can't really say here. You shouldn't go do this. I think it by definition has to be hot.
Okay, I'm going to make the water slightly less hot by saying cold. So I do. There is lots of good stuff here, but I think they're just charging way too much money for it, John. And the fact is that you can buy something. Well, Honor is about to come out with its V6. It's already launched in China. It doesn't have the software fluidity. Samsung does a better job with the software than Honor does. Nevertheless, it's difficult to justify the difference in cost because it will probably be around the £1,400 mark. So all in all, despite the fact I think they've done a much better job this year than last year, and I would never even come close to calling a previous fold hot, I think I'm going to give it a call for this occasion. All right, thank you very much for listening, everyone.
What do the positors think? Yes.
I can reveal that the final vote is in, and we have just hot, John. 54% hot, 46% not. So you've won people over with your persuasive yet honest arguments. Okay, thank you very much. As I was about to say, it's been lovely having you here. I've forgotten how to end podcasts. Thank you very much for taking part, everyone. And until our next podcast in a week's time, goodbye.
Bye.
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 Always have to have the last word, don't you, Nick? Always have to have the last word. Okay, all right. Now let's move into the post-record mode. I believe. Let me just bring up the document because, of course, Darian is not here. When the podcast is over and everyone has said goodbye, you can stop the recording if you want. But this will also immediately cut off anyone. Can you hear Darian? So Olivia knows Darian. When you went to university with him, didn't you,
Yeah.
Olivia? So you can hear Darian and his words. But this will immediately cut off anyone listening on Discord. I therefore let the recording continue until we've informally said goodbye to one another, and the live listeners then finish by hitting end session for everyone. Okay, all right. So informally. We need to say goodbye according to Darian's instructions.
But we need to wait for the upload to complete.
After I've hit the button, we need to don't close your windows, Nick and Olivia. Let the good stuff happen. Is there anything? Let's see. Does anyone have a question from the floor, Discord listeners, before we say goodbye? Nothing about John's holiday, perhaps. No, I think it's mainly just mocking the idea of an informal goodbye.
I think they're mocking the idea of me on a beach in shorts. I think was actually
I don't.
quite a lot of mockage going on there.
Thank goodness it was at least shorts.
Well, that wasn't the image that came up on Discord, I can tell you.
There was an image on Discord.
Well, they started talking about Speedos. Anyway, Captain Kremen asks, and I think we all know the answer to this. Captain Kremen asks, which version did you buy in terms of storage, John?
I actually bought the base model, the 1799 one.
But they had a special offer, didn't they? So for the 512 version.
No,
I guess.
the special offer had run out, so I bought the base one.
With just 256.
I know.
Base model poverty spec, as Paul
I
C
know,
puts
the
it.
poverty sec. Yes, I know. But this is not going to be something that lives with me as a thing. It's going to be something that's going to be used and kicked about and so forth. So I don't need more than 256 gig on here, unlike my iPhone, which has got the 1 terabyte and mostly full.
All right. Okay. I think we've done our informal goodbyes now. Okay. Informally goodbye, Nick. I hope you have a fine afternoon.
Thank you, Tim. Informally, I will.
Okay. I'm going to end the recording, but don't close your windows. Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Bye.
Informally.
Oh, he's gone, but I'm still here.
But you just
Yeah,
get
I'm
the
still
leave
here.
button.
Do I leave or do I get
Just
thrown
press
off?
the leave button, then wait until it says you've uploaded.
Okay, I don't think I've had to press leave before. I've obviously just been here.
Oh, I know. I can press stop.